Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast, where we like to talk about all things about living life as a global citizen. When many people think about the Vietnam War, or as they call it here in Vietnam, the American War, one of the things that comes up is the Huey helicopter, which was basically the Bell UH-1, helicopter, which is known as a Huey. And this helicopter rose to prominence during the Vietnam War as it was used, became sort of the emblem of the war. It, redefined battlefield mobility and offered a previously unseen mix of versatility. It was used a lot for medevacs and other things. The Bell UH-1, or the Huey helicopter, took off into the skies as an emblem of American innovation. However, shortly after its debut, the chopper became the defining symbol of the Vietnam War. Part of the reason it became a defining symbol was a game changer from the get-go. Its introduction brought a new sense of mobility and flexibility on the battlefield. Unlike before, the troops could now be transported quickly across the challenging terrain. The helicopter was able to land, go up and down, drop into hot zones, and evacuate quickly. So it really changed the entire course of the war. It made the American military more agile, and it became a crucial advantage in the unpredictable environment of Vietnam. But it wasn't just about moving troops. It also served as a gunship, a medevac for the wounded, a cargo transporter, and a flying command center. So the Huey began to have many different roles. It took the media spotlight as television became a household staple in the 1960s. Images and footages of the Hueys in action captivated many audiences back home. They were seen airlifting soldiers, raining down firepower, and saving lives. And this became, constant media presence with this helicopter began to be etched into the minds of many of the Americans with the Huey as, in their public minds, they saw this as part of the war. It symbolizes the experiences of those who served in Vietnam. For the veterans, the sound of the Huey could be instantly transport them back to the jungles, or it could get their comrades out, that were hurt. It became more than a helicopter. It became a witness to the bravery, the sacrifices, and the complexities of the Vietnam or the American War. Its legacy endures, not just, in military history, but also in popular culture. From movies to documentaries and even to memorials, the Hueys portrayed as the iconic image of the Vietnam conflict. It's fascinating how a piece of technology can transcend its initial purpose and become such a powerful symbol. And this really became a powerful symbol of the Vietnam conflict, the Vietnam War, or as they call it here in Vietnam, the American War. So how did the Huey become a symbol of Vietnam War? Well, it was through its versatility on the battlefield and its presence in the media and its deep connection to the experiences of those who were saved. So the Huey in many ways is not just a helicopter. It was a Vietnam War flying through time, carrying stories of courage and resilience. But the Huey also, what's important, is it has an influence on helicopter design. It became a true icon of innovation, has influenced the design of future helicopters. Beyond its versatility and symbolic nature, introduced design elements that have become staples in the blueprint of modern helicopters. One of the most influential design features is the rotor system. The Huey utilized a two-blade central rotor system that was simple yet effective, making it more reliable and easier to maintain than the more complex systems found on earlier helicopters. This emphasis on simplicity and reliability, of course, would have been very important during wartime, but it's been carried over to many modern helicopters, ensuring that they perform in various conditions without needing constant, complicated maintenance. Another thing that was groundbreaking about the Huey was the Huey's use of the turboshaft engine. This was a significant shift from the piston engines used in earlier helicopters. The turboshaft engine offered more power and was lighter, and it also contributed to the Huey's capability to fulfill various roles from cargo transport to medevac missions. Today, the turboshaft engine is a standard among helicopters, providing necessary power and efficiency for various tasks. The Huey's cockpit design, too, also made waves. It featured large windows that offered pilots unparalleled visibility. This was a critical factor in combat and rescue missions. Nearly all military and civilian helicopters have adopted this design element, recognizing the importance of visibility for safe and efficient operations. So they really expanded the windows there so the pilots would have this very large view of the landscape. Perhaps one of the most impact of the Huey's design, but yet the most subtle, modular approach to mission equipment. The Huey can be quickly configured with various weapons, medical equipment, or cargo transport apparatus. This made it highly adaptable aircraft. So this became very important and a key feature of the design of this. So it made it a very versatile type of helicopter, allowing it to be able to fly a high range of missions with a single airframe by simply swapping out equipment. The noise of the Huey chopping through the air became a symbol of hope for many and a sound of terror for others. And this, really became one of the symbols of the Vietnam War era, or as known here as the American War. While modern helicopters haven't eliminated noise, there has been an emphasis on designing more efficient rotor systems that produce different sound signatures. Even though noise is still an issue with the helicopters, but the Huey certainly became a symbol through their noise. When you look at helicopters, you can look at the Huey helicopter and see how it became such an important symbol during this time. But not only that, as you see how during this wartime era, we were able to use the things that were learned to be able to build a better helicopter today, and how many of those design elements today have continued to become an important element in aviation design. For pilots and the crew, the Huey was more than just a machine. It was actually a lifeline. And each mission, whether it was medevac, rescue, transport, or combat assault, it began with they had a meticulous flight check. So the Huey really became this great symbol of the war itself. To hear the humming of those blades that was going on. The mechanics, of course, were also very important in all of this, being able to, keep the helicopters up in the air. Today, if you go to Vietnam and you go to any of the war museums, you'll be able to see some of these helicopters there that are in some of the war museums that the Vietnamese have on display. So really, the Huey was very much a symbol of, America during this time, and it really did, in many ways, proved to be a symbol of the Vietnam War. I really, enjoy this because of the fact that, living here in Vietnam myself, as I've seen some of these helicopters in person, but not only that is just to see, how things like this have evolved over time, and how the use and how the helicopter was used during this time changed probably aviation history for many years to come. If you'd like to be able to read more, my co-author, James Johnson, has written a blog entitled The Huey, the Icon of the Vietnam War. We'll put a link in the description so that you can be able to read about it and be able to learn more about the Huey. He's got a lot more information on here than what I'm talking about here, and some great photos and other things which show about the Huey helicopter and how important it was during this era of time and for this war. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you've enjoyed this Dusty Roads podcast and that you'll subscribe and become part of our community. We'd love to have you join with us.